Firefighters are trained to run toward danger, into smoke, into heat, into places everyone else is desperate to escape. But some calls leave behind more than burned walls and broken glass. Some scenes stay with them long after the fire is out, after the sirens stop, after the station doors close for the night. Tonight on Dark Hours, we're sharing firefighters' horror stories. True and unsettling accounts from those who saw something they were never trained to explain. If you're new here, subscribe to Dark Hours for true horror and real stories meant to be heard after dark. And tell me in the comments, are you watching from a city, a small town, or somewhere in between? Now dim the lights, and let's begin. My name is Evan Rourke, and the first time I heard the third tone on our county pager, I thought it was a malfunction. 2 notes meant fire. 2 notes meant you pull on your pants and boots in one motion. You move before your mind catches up. You trust the men and women around you because you've trained to trust them. 2 notes meant purpose. The third tone, low, drawn out, almost mournful, meant stand by for information, according to the old binder in the radio room. But nobody ever used it, not anymore. Not in a place like Dyer's Mill, where the biggest excitement was when the grocery store got new freezer doors. The pager hit at 2:11 a.m., and the third tone dragged through the bunk room like a hand across a damp chalkboard. I sat up in my cot and listened to the building settle, the old station breathing around us. Wood beams, concrete floors, diesel smell soaked into everything. Across the room, Cal Morgan turned his head toward me, his face half lit by the red exit sign. "What the hell was that?" I whispered. Cal didn't answer. He swung his feet down and started pulling on his station shirt like he'd heard something worse than a tone. The bay doors rattled as somebody thumbed the switch. The fluorescent lights snapped on with a tired hum. In the kitchen, the coffee maker gurgled like it was waking too. Captain Baines came out of his office already dressed, like he hadn't been sleeping at all. He stopped at the doorway to the bunk room and looked at each of us in turn, me, Cal, and Wesley Hart, who'd been with the department since before I was born. "County wants Engine 3 and Rescue 1 to roll," Baines said. His voice was too level. "No sirens, no lights until you hit the county line. You hear me?" Wesley's eyes narrowed. "Fire?" Baines hesitated, then said, "Reported structure, possible occupants." That should have been enough. It should have been like any other night call. But the no sirens part stuck in my throat like ash. We were rolling out less than 4 minutes later, tires crunching salt on the apron. The radio cracked with static, and then the dispatcher's voice. "Dyer's Mill units, respond to 1147 Ruddock Road. Caller reports smoke from residents. Use caution. Sheriff en route." Ruddock Road was a ribbon of black that cut through corn stubble and winter-bare trees, the kind of road where your headlights felt swallowed. I sat in the right seat of Engine 3, the cab warm, the windshield fogging at the corners. Cal drove with both hands on the wheel, jaw tight. "Any idea what this is?" I asked. He didn't look at me. "Just keep your head on straight." That's what people say. When they know something, they won't tell you. We crossed the county line and Cal flicked on the lights. The blue and red washed over dead fields and fence posts, but still no siren. The sound inside the cab was just engine, heater fan, and radio static. We turned onto Ruddock and the smell hit us before we saw anything. Not a clean wood smoke smell, not a chimney smell. This was chemical and sweet, like burned plastic and something oily. A smell that makes your body decide it's in danger before your mind does. The house was a single-wide trailer set back from the road, porch sagging, one bare bulb over the door. There was smoke, but it wasn't pouring out like a full involvement. It drifted from under the skirting and from a window that looked like it had been taped shut. Sheriff's cruiser was already there, idling with no lights. Deputy Laird stood by the driver's door, hands shoved in his jacket pockets, watching us pull in like he'd been expecting us for hours. Captain Baines got out of Rescue 1 behind us, his boots crunching gravel, and walked straight to Laird. The two of them spoke low. I couldn't hear words, only the shape of the conversation. Laird saying something, Baines stiffening, then nodding like he'd swallowed something bitter. Cal killed the engine. The bay went quiet except for the ticking of hot metal cooling. We geared up, the ritual we'd done 100 times. Bunker pants, coat, hood, helmet, gloves. I snapped my chin strap and felt my own breath loud inside the hood. Wesley went to the hydrant, except there wasn't one. Rural. We'd be drafting from the tank and hoping it was enough. Cal pulled the pre-connect. I followed with a hook and a Halligan. "Evan," Baines called, and I looked up. His face was hard. You do exactly what I tell you. Do not wander. Do not go into rooms you're not assigned. Clear?" My stomach tightened. "Yes, Cap." Baines pointed at the trailer. "We go in. We find the seat. We put it out. We do not touch anything else." That last part made no sense in a fire. In a fire, you move things, you pull ceilings, you rip paneling, you do whatever you have to. Fire doesn't care about your anything else. We forced the door. It opened too easily, like it wasn't latched. Heat rolled out, not a blast, but a steady, oppressive warmth. Smoke layered low, thick enough that my flashlight beam seemed to die after a few feet. The first thing I noticed was the silence. Fires have sound, crackle, pop, the roar of oxygen feeding. This was quiet, like the trailer was holding its breath. We crawled in. The floor under my knees felt tacky. The air tasted wrong even through the mask, like the filter was already losing. "Engine 3 interior," Cal called on the radio, "making entry." My light swept over a living room, old sofa, TV, stacks of newspapers. But the newspapers weren't random. They were stacked in neat piles, like someone had built walls out of them. A path had been cleared through, almost like a maze, leading deeper. Wesley's voice came through my headset, tight. "This ain't a hoarder. This is arranged." We moved along the path. The heat increased, then faded, then increased again, like we were passing pockets of something smoldering under the floor. The smell got sweeter. We reached the kitchen. Cabinets were open, empty. The counters were clean, too clean. A chair sat in the middle of the floor like someone had placed it there intentionally. On the chair was a child's winter coat, small, pink, hung over the back like someone had just stood up. My brain tried to build a story it liked. Family, rushed out, left coat behind. But there were no family pictures, no magnets, no clutter that showed anyone lived here. Baines held up a hand. We stopped. He leaned toward the floor, his gloved hand hovering over a spot where smoke seeped from a seam. He nodded at Cal. Cal opened the nozzle. "Short burst," Baines said. "Low pressure." Cal did it, a controlled hiss. Water hit the seam, and for a second, everything went quiet. Then the floor shuddered. Not an explosion. Not dramatic. Just a deep, ugly thunk, like something under us had shifted. Baines's head snapped toward the hallway. "Back!" he ordered. "Back to the door!" But Wesley had already moved, eyes fixed on the hallway. "Cap, there's..." He didn't finish. His boot stepped off the cleared path onto what looked like normal vinyl flooring. It wasn't vinyl, it was paper, layers and layers, soaked in something. Wesley's foot slid and he went down hard on one knee. His glove slapped the floor to catch himself, and his palm came up dark, shiny. "Gas," Cal muttered. Not gasoline. The smell wasn't right. It was heavier, slicker, something that clung. Baines hauled Wesley up by the SCBA strap. "Move," he said. The word was sharp as a slap. As we retreated, my light caught something in the hallway. A door, half open, and behind it, a glimpse of something white and curved. At first, I thought it was a mannequin. Then my brain registered the shape of a rib cage. I froze for maybe half a second, long enough for Baines to notice. "Evan!" he barked. "Do not look! Move!" The moral conflict hit me like a wave of nausea. If that was a body, if there were people in here, we were leaving them. Every instinct I'd trained screamed to go, to check, to search. But Baines's voice had something in it I'd never heard before. Fear, not of fire, but of what we might see. We made it to the doorway. The air outside felt like a punch of cold reality. I ripped my mask off and gulped, tasting winter and diesel. Deputy Laird stepped closer, hand near his holster. "You see it?" he asked Baines. Baines stared at the trailer, smoke drifting like it was thinking. I saw enough. Cal leaned on the engine, helmet still on, breathing hard. "Cap, that's an accelerant job, but it's not normal." Wesley was wiping his glove on the gravel like he could erase what he touched. "There's something under the floor," he said. "Something stacked." Baines turned to me. "Evan, you didn't see anything. You hear me? You did not see anything." I should have nodded. I should have kept my mouth shut like everyone else did in small towns when you were told to. But my throat tightened and I said, "Cap, if there's someone in there..." Baines's eyes snapped to mine. "If there's someone in there, the sheriff will handle it. We are not going back in." The trailer continued to smoke without flame, like it was smoldering from the inside out. Laird keyed his radio and spoke into it quietly, his words swallowed by distance. A second cruiser arrived. Then an unmarked SUV. Men in dark jackets. County investigators? State? I didn't know. They moved with a purpose that made my skin crawl. They didn't look at us like we were help. They looked at us like we were a problem to manage. One of them, a man with a clipboard and a face like he'd never smiled, approached Baines. "Captain," he said, and didn't offer a hand. "We'll take it from here. Your report will note electrical origin suspected and no victims located. Understood?" Baines's jaw clenched. "Understood." My stomach dropped. "That's not..." Cal's gloved hand closed around my elbow, hard, a warning. The clipboard man looked at me then, his eyes flat. "Name?" I felt Baines's gaze on the side of my face like a weight. "Evan," I said. "Evan Rourke." The man nodded once, like he'd filed it away. "Evan, you'll do well here if you learn quickly what belongs to you and what doesn't." Then he walked away. We stood there in our gear, boots and gravel, watching smoke drift from a trailer that wasn't being extinguished. No water streams, no overhaul, just containment, just waiting. At 3:07 a.m., Baines told us to pack up. Back at the station, nobody talked at first. The engines cooled. Gear hung heavy on racks. The smell of that sweet smoke clung to my hair even after I washed my face. Wesley sat at the kitchen table, staring at his hands. Cal poured coffee, didn't drink it. Finally, I said, "What was that?" Cal's eyes flicked up, then away. "It was a mistake to go in," he said. "That's not an answer." Wesley's voice came out rough. "You ever hear stories about Ruddock Road?" he asked. I shook my head. Wesley swallowed. "People disappear out there, not like vanished into thin air. Like the kind of disappearing where everyone pretends they moved away." I felt my skin tighten. "Who lived in that trailer?" Wesley looked at Baines. Baines stood by the sink, hands on the counter, knuckles white. He didn't look like a captain then. He looked like a man trying to hold back something that had been building in him for years. "There was no family," he said quietly. "There's never a family, not in those places." I waited. My chest felt like it was filled with smoke again. Baines exhaled. "County uses us. Not every call is about fire. Sometimes it's about cleaning." "Cleaning what?" I asked, though I already knew. Baines turned his head slightly, eyes shadowed. "Things the public can't handle. Things that would ruin this town." Cal set his mug down with a soft clink. "We tell ourselves it's for the greater good," he said. "We tell ourselves it keeps the peace." "And you believe that?" I asked. Cal didn't answer. That night I lay on my cot and listened to the station creak. I smelled the phantom sweetness in my nose and saw ribs behind a half-open door every time I closed my eyes. Weeks went by. Calls came in. Chimney fires, car wrecks, a barn that went up like a torch because somebody left a heater too close to hay. Life. Normal, messy, human. But every time the pager went off, my stomach tightened, waiting for that third tone. It came again in March, when the snow was melting into mud and the roads were slick. 1:36 a.m. Third tone. Baines's office light on before the pager finished. "Same rules," he said. "No sirens." This time it was an abandoned church on the edge of town. People called it abandoned, but the power bill still got paid, and the grass was always cut. We pulled up and I saw the sheriff's cruiser again. The unmarked SUV, men in dark jackets. Inside, the church smelled like smoke and old hymnals. The pews were pushed aside. There were blankets on the floor, folded neatly. A space heater tipped over, still glowing faintly. The floorboards were blackened in a rectangle. Like a fire had tried to start and been smothered. There were no flames, no visible seat, just smoke and that same sweet, oily stink. My flashlight beam caught something under the altar. A row of shoes, men's boots, women's flats, small sneakers, lined up like someone had taken care to arrange them. I felt my throat close. I looked at Baines. He was staring at the shoes like they'd spoken. "Out," he said. "But..." "Out," he repeated, louder. We backed out, leaving the church to smoke in silence. Outside, the clipboard man appeared again, as if he'd been waiting in the dark. "You boys did good," he said to Baines, like we were dogs who'd stayed in a yard. My hands shook as I stripped my gloves. I wanted to shout, to do anything that made this real, made it acknowledged. But small towns have gravity. They pull everything back into place. In April, I started noticing things. How certain addresses never came up on dispatch logs. How Baines's reports were short on details for specific calls. How Deputy Laird would show up at scenes before dispatch even paged us out, like he'd been tipped off. I told myself I was paranoid. I told myself fire service is full of weird calls, that not everything is a conspiracy, but my mind kept going back to those shoes, those ribs, that sweetness. One night in May, I drove out to Ruddock Road alone. It was stupid. It was reckless. It was the kind of thing you do when your brain can't live with a question mark anymore. The trailer was gone, not burned down and hauled away. Gone as if it had never existed. The gravel pad was raked smooth. The grass was already growing back. No char, no smell, just empty. I sat in my truck with the windows down, listening to crickets and distant frogs. The darkness outside felt thick, intimate. Then my radio crackled. Not a dispatch, not a tone, just static, and then a sound underneath it. A low, drawn-out tone that made my skin prickle. The third tone. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel. "Hello?" I said into the handheld like an idiot. Static again, then a voice so faint I couldn't tell if it was real or my own brain. "Don't." I dropped the radio like it burned me. My heart hammered. I scanned the road, the tree line, the empty pad. There was nobody, no headlights, no movement. I drove back to town with my jaw locked, headlights swallowing the road. When I reached the station, the bay doors were closed, lights off, everyone asleep. I sat in the parking lot for a long time, engine off, listening to the cooling ticks, trying to decide if I'd imagined it. The next day, Captain Baines called me into his office. He didn't ask where I'd been. He didn't accuse. He just looked at me for a long moment, then opened a drawer and slid a manila envelope across the desk. Inside was a single photograph. Black and white, a trailer on a gravel pad, a group of people standing in front of it. Men in work coats, women holding babies, kids squinting at the camera. And among them, younger, clean-shaven, smiling like he didn't yet know what smiling cost, Captain Baines. My throat went dry. When was this? Baines's voice was quiet. 1989. I stared at the faces. They looked ordinary. Too ordinary. The kind of people you'd wave to in a grocery store aisle. "What happened to them?" I whispered. Baines swallowed. I saw his throat work. "We had a call," he said. "Same tone, same rules. We went in. We found things. We did what we were told." He leaned forward. "And then we kept living. Because that's what people do. They keep living until it eats them from the inside." I looked back at the photograph, at the baby in a woman's arms, at the kids' faces, at Baines's smile. "You're telling me," I said, voice shaking, "that this has been going on for decades." Baines didn't deny it. "Why?" I asked. "Who are they?" Baines's eyes were wet, but he didn't let anything fall. "They're us," he said. "The part of us nobody wants to admit exists. The part that can do things in the dark and still show up at Sunday service." He took the photograph back, slid it into the envelope, put it away like it was evidence of a crime that could never be tried. "I'm retiring," he said. "Soon, Cal will take over, and you." He paused. "You can leave, or you can learn to survive here." The moral dilemma sat between us like a live wire. If I left, I'd be the outsider who couldn't hack it. If I stayed, I'd be complicit. That night, the pager stayed silent. But I lay awake anyway, listening for a third tone that might never come, or might come the moment I started to believe I was safe. In June, a new volunteer joined. Young kid, fresh out of high school, eyes bright like mine had been. His name was Tyler. He asked questions. He laughed too loud in the bay. He told everyone he wanted to be a firefighter because he wanted to help people. I watched him and felt something twist in my chest. The third tone came in July. 2:04 a.m. Tyler bolted upright, confused, excited, adrenaline making him grin. "That's a new one," he said. Cal, now acting captain with Baines already half gone, looked at Tyler with a flatness that made my stomach drop. "Get dressed," Cal said, "and listen to me. Tonight, you do what you're told." Tyler's grin faded. "Okay." As we rolled out into the dark, I realized the most disturbing part wasn't what we might find. It was that I already knew the rules, and that I'd started to understand why people followed them. Because in a small town, the fire doesn't always come from lightning or faulty wiring. Sometimes it comes from the things everyone agrees not to see, and once you've seen them, you either burn with it or you help keep it contained. My name is Marlene Kessler, and I learned early that smoke has different voices. There's the fast, greedy smoke of a kitchen grease fire, sharp and panicked, filling a room like it wants to escape. There's the slow, heavy smoke of a basement electrical burn, sour, stubborn, clinging to your gear for days. There's the clean, almost comforting wood stove smoke that rolls out of a chimney on winter mornings and makes you feel like someone is awake inside a warm house. And then there's the smoke you can't explain. The call came in on a Tuesday night in late October, the kind of cold that turns your breath into a small cloud even inside the cab. I'd been on the Ridge County Volunteer Department for 9 years by then, long enough that the pager sound didn't spike my heart the way it used to, but not so long that I'd grown numb to what fire can do to people. Dispatch said, "Structure fire, possible occupants, 8 miles north on Hollow Creek Road, old farmhouse near the abandoned grain silos." Hollow Creek Road was one of those rural routes that looked straight on a map, but curved and dipped like a snake in real life. No streetlights, no cell service in the low spots, and the farmhouse they meant wasn't one anyone claimed as home. People drove past it with their eyes forward, like it was impolite to stare. I rode in brush, too, with our lieutenant, Dale Hargrove, a man who chewed sunflower seeds like it was his religion. Behind us, Tanker 4 followed, and our engine came last, lights flashing against the trees. As we crested the last hill, I saw it. A 2-story farmhouse with black windows, a sagging porch, and smoke pouring from the roofline in a steady sheet. Not flame yet, just smoke, thick and gray, spreading out under the moon like a bruise. Dale slowed as we approached, and I felt it. Something off, something that didn't match the sight. "Do you smell that?" I asked through the open window. Dale sniffed. "Smells like a campfire." "That's not right," I said. "This is too much smoke for just wood." He spit a sunflower seed hull into a cup. "Maybe the old insulation. Maybe somebody moved in and lit a stove wrong." We parked on the shoulder. Gravel popped under tires. The air was still, no wind, which should have made the smoke rise straight. But it didn't. It crawled low, hugging the yard, drifting toward us like it wanted company. I pulled my hood over my hair, snapped my helmet on, and shouldered a tool bag. My gloves were already damp inside. Nerves do that. Our engine crew advanced a line to the front porch. The door stood slightly ajar, moving gently as if the house was breathing. No car in the drive, no footprints in the frost, no barking dog, no porch light. Dale keyed his radio. "Ridge County on scene. 2-story farmhouse. Heavy smoke, no visible flame, making entry for search." He looked at me. "You and I go in with them." I nodded, but my throat felt tight. The first step onto the porch made the boards creak like a complaint. The smoke was thicker here, seeping from the cracks around the door. When we pushed inside, the heat hit us like a wall, not a flashover kind of heat, more like an oven left on too long, dry, constant. Our flashlights cut through the haze and the beam landed on nothing personal. That's the only way I can describe it. The living room had furniture, couch, chair, coffee table, but no life, no throw blankets, no family photos, no knickknacks, no dust either, which would have been normal for an abandoned house. The surfaces were clean, almost wiped. The air smelled faintly of pine cleaner underneath the smoke. "Someone's been here," I muttered. Dale's voice in my ear was low. "Stay focused." We moved deeper. The hallway walls were bare, stripped of pictures. The floors were swept. Every door we passed was shut, like the house wanted its secrets compartmentalized. The smoke got thicker near the back, coming from somewhere low. "Basement?" I asked. Dale nodded. "Probably." We reached the kitchen. It was old, yellowed cabinets, sink-stained from hard water. But it had a new propane stove, shiny, almost out of place. A pot sat on the burner, lid on, steam hissing faintly. I stared at it, confused. "Is that boiling?" Dale stepped closer. "Turn it off." Before he could, the lid rattled and slid, and something inside the pot burped, releasing a puff of steam that smelled wrong, metallic and sweet. Dale recoiled. "Jesus." I turned my light down. The pot was full of water, maybe. But there were things floating in it, small pale shapes like cut vegetables, except they weren't vegetables. They were too smooth, too uniform. My stomach flipped. I forced my brain to label them. Teeth. Not all of them. Too many were the same. But some looked like molars. I stepped back so fast my boot hit the chair behind me and knocked it over with a clatter. "Move," Dale snapped, but his voice wasn't anger. It was fear he was trying to hide. We moved toward the basement door, which was at the end of the kitchen, a narrow wooden door with a padlock hanging open like someone had unlocked it for us. The smoke was seeping from the cracks around it, in thick rolling layers. Our nozzle man, Rick, pried it open and started down first. The stairs were steep. The smoke down there was almost black. I followed, one hand on the rail, flashlight pointed down. The air grew hotter with each step and the smell shifted. Less wood, more chemical, like burning rubber and wet animal fur. At the bottom, my light landed on concrete floor and a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. The bulb flickered, dimming and brightening as if struggling. The smoke source wasn't obvious, no visible flames, just heat and haze. Then I heard it. A sound beneath the crackle of radio static and the hiss of our breathing. A soft, rhythmic thump, not like a heartbeat, like someone tapping a boot against a floor. I froze. Dale's voice came through my headset. "You hear that?" I nodded, then realized he couldn't see. "Yeah." Rick swept his flashlight. "Over there." In the far corner of the basement was a partition wall, hastily built from plywood. A door cut into it, cheap hollow core, painted white. The thumping came from behind it. Rick raised his Halligan. "Could be a person." That should have been the end of it. In our training, if you hear a potential victim, you go. You don't debate. You don't hesitate. But Dale's hand shot out and grabbed Rick's arm. Hard. "No," Dale said. Rick looked at him, incredulous. "We got a possible occupant. We're going." Dale's eyes were wide behind his mask. He shook his head just once, like a warning. I felt my skin go cold under my gear. Rick yanked his arm free. "Move," he said, and swung the Halligan into the door. The door splintered with a dull crack. The thumping stopped. A smell rushed out, worse than smoke. Stale sweat, urine, and something sour like old blood. My flashlight beam cut into the space beyond. It was a room, small, no windows, bare concrete walls, and in the center of it, a mattress on the floor. On the mattress was a man, or what was left of him, restrained, wrists and ankles bound with duct tape and rope. His mouth was taped. His eyes were wide, white showing all around, staring at us like we were both salvation and punishment. His skin was grayish, clammy. He looked dehydrated, malnourished, but alive. Barely. Behind him, against the wall, were stacks of plastic storage bins. Their lids were labeled with black marker. Hair, teeth, IDs, phones. My throat closed so tight I thought I might vomit inside my mask. Rick stepped forward. "We got a victim," he shouted into his radio. "We need EMS." Dale grabbed Rick's shoulder and hauled him back. "Shut up," Dale hissed. Rick spun, furious. "What is wrong with you? Dale's eyes flicked to the bins, to the man on the mattress, then to me. "Look at the labels," he said quietly. "Look at the fact there's no flame." Rick's anger faltered. He looked back. His breathing sounded harsh in my headset. Then the bare bulb flickered again, and the whole room dimmed for a second, like a warning. I heard footsteps upstairs, slow, heavy, not running away, coming toward us. Dale's hand tightened on Rick. "We are not alone," he said. Fear rushed through me, clean and sharp. The horror wasn't supernatural. It was simple. Someone did this. Someone could be standing at the top of the stairs right now, hearing us. Rick pointed his flashlight toward the basement steps. "We're firefighters," he said, as if that was armor. The footsteps stopped above. Then came a voice, calm and even, calling down through the smoke. "Y'all shouldn't be down there." It sounded like a man in his 50s. Country drawl, familiar in a way that made my stomach sink, like you'd heard it at the hardware store or in line at the diner. Dale's voice went thin. "Who is that?" The man laughed softly. "Don't play dumb, Dale." Dale flinched like he'd been slapped. Rick's head snapped toward him. "Marlene," Dale said, voice low and urgent. "Back up. Now." I didn't want to. The man on the mattress was staring at me, eyes pleading above the tape. My mind split in two. The firefighter part of me screamed, "Get him out!" The small-town part of me, the part that understood how names carried weight here, screamed, "Dale knows this voice." Rick stepped toward the basement stairs, raising his voice. "Sir, we're here for a fire. We've got a victim in the basement. We need you to—" A gunshot cracked overhead, not aimed at us maybe, but close enough that the sound punched through my chest. Concrete dust drifted from the ceiling. We froze. The voice above said, still calm, "I said you shouldn't be down there." Rick's flashlight hand shook. Dale's grip on him was iron. "Marlene," Dale repeated, and his tone wasn't a request. It was desperation. "Go." I backed up toward the partition room. The man on the mattress thrashed weakly, making a muffled sound behind the tape. His eyes tracked me. I crouched next to him, hands moving toward the tape on his mouth. Dale's voice snapped. "Don't touch him." I looked up at him, stunned. "Dale, we can't leave." Dale's eyes were wet, and in that moment he looked older than I'd ever seen him. "If you touch him," he said, "you're in this." The gun above cocked, audible, deliberate. Rick swallowed hard. "We can't," he started, but his voice broke. I stared at the man on the mattress, at the bins, at the labels. I tried to imagine explaining this to anyone. I tried to imagine the sheriff, the county prosecutor, the town council. I realized something then that made my blood go cold. This wasn't an isolated crime scene. It was organized. It had been happening for long enough to have labeled bins. This wasn't just one person. This was a system. The moral dilemma hit hard. Save one man now, and risk retaliation. Risk a cover-up that would swallow us whole. Or leave him and live with it forever. Dale made the decision for us. He grabbed Rick's jacket and dragged him backward toward the stairs. "We're out," he said into the radio, voice steady now like he'd flipped a switch. "Basement inaccessible due to structural risk and potential hazardous materials. Pulling crew out." Rick stared at him like he didn't recognize him. "You're lying," Rick mouthed, voice raw. Dale didn't look at him. He just moved. I stood, legs trembling, and backed away from the restrained man. His eyes widened, panic flaring. He tried to scream through tape. I turned away before I could change my mind. We climbed the stairs into the smoky kitchen. The pot on the stove still hissed. The toothwater smell clung to my nose. At the top of the basement steps, there was a man standing in the hallway. No mask, no gear, just a flannel shirt and jeans, hair gray at the temples. He held a shotgun casually, like it was a tool. He smiled at Dale. "Evening?" Dale nodded, voice controlled. "Evening, Mr. Leander." I knew that name. Everyone did. Leander owned half the land around here. He'd donated money to the fire department for new gear last year. He'd sponsored the Little League team. He sat front row at church. Rick's hands clenched. "You shot at us," he said. Leander's eyes slid to Rick, cold now. "I shot at the ceiling," he corrected. "If I'd shot at you, you'd be on the floor." He looked at me. "Marlene," he said, like we'd met, like he knew me. "You're newish, aren't you?" I didn't answer. My mouth was dry. He smiled again, then nodded toward the front door. "Y'all go on. Fire's not gonna spread. It's a controlled burn." Dale didn't argue. He just ushered us out like we were leaving someone's home after a social call. Outside, the night air hit my lungs like it was the first real breath I'd taken. The rest of the crew looked at us with questions in their eyes. Engine crew had been pulling ceiling in the living room, finding nothing but smoke-stained beams. "Where's the fire?" one of them asked. Dale answered smoothly. "Smoldering in the basement insulation. We're backing out. Let it ventilate. Sheriff's handling it." Nobody questioned sheriff. That's how it works. Sheriff is a wall you don't climb. As we packed up, I saw Leander step onto the porch, shotgun still in hand, watching us like he was making sure we left. The smoke continued to pour from the roofline, steady, calm, like it wasn't accidental. Back at the station, Rick exploded. He slammed his helmet on the table. What the hell was that? Dale's face was gray. "Drop it!" "You left a man in a basement," Rick said, voice shaking with rage. "You let that land baron threaten us." Dale leaned forward, eyes hard now. "You think you're the first firefighter to stumble into something you weren't supposed to see?" Rick's mouth fell open. "So you knew?" Dale didn't deny it. My hands were trembling as I peeled off my gloves. My fingers smelled like smoke and pine cleaner. "What was in those bins?" I asked, voice thin. Dale stared at the table like he could burn a hole through it with his eyes. People who pass through, he said quietly. Runaways, drifters, folks with warrants, folks nobody looks for too hard. Rick's voice went hoarse. That's kidnapping. Dale nodded. Yes. Silence fell heavy. The station's fluorescent lights buzzed. The coffee pot clicked on and off. I thought about the restrained man, about his eyes, about the way he'd looked at me like I'd been his last chance. I'm calling the state, Rick said. Dale's head snapped up. And say what? That you found a torture room in an abandoned farmhouse owned by the most powerful man in the county? That he threatened you? You think they'll believe you, or do you think they'll call the sheriff, who'll call Leander, and then suddenly you'll be the one with a problem? Rick's face was red. We can't just... Dale's voice softened, and that made it worse. We've been just for a long time. That's how this town stays quiet. I felt something inside me crack. Not dramatic, not loud, just a shift. The realization that the horror wasn't the fire, or the smoke, or even the bins. It was how normal the conversation sounded, like we were debating a budget item, not a human life. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing the man's eyes. I kept smelling that metallic sweetness. 2 days later, Hollow Creek Road was blocked off by sheriff's tape. The farmhouse was gone, not burned down, not charred. Gone. Bulldozed, flattened. Fresh dirt and tire tracks. Leander's grain silo still stood, looming, quiet. Rick stopped coming to calls after that. He said he was busy. Then he said he was moving. Then, one day, his locker was empty. People in town said he'd gotten a job in the city, better pay, better opportunities. No one said his name in the station after a while, like saying it would invite questions. And me? I stayed. That's the confession part people don't like. I stayed because my mother lived here and needed me. Because my paycheck came from the same county budget Leander's friends controlled. Because I told myself I could do more good staying than leaving. But the truth is uglier. I stayed because I was afraid. Every time we got a call out past the grain silos, my stomach twisted. Every time I saw Leander at church, shaking hands, smiling, I felt my skin crawl. Once, months later, he approached me in the grocery store aisle. He picked up a bag of apples like he was choosing produce with care. "Doing okay, Marlene?" he asked pleasantly. I nodded, throat tight. He smiled. "Good. Because it'd be a shame if something happened to your mother's place. Old wiring, you know. Those houses go up fast." He walked away, leaving me standing there with my hands shaking in the produce section, surrounded by ordinary people choosing ordinary food, while my mind replayed a basement with labeled bins. The smoke that night still has a voice in my memory. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, controlled, and patient. Like it knew it didn't have to chase you. Because in a small town, if the right people decide you belong in the dark will wait for you to come back on your own. My name is Luis Ortega, and I used to think the worst part of firefighting was the screams. I don't mean the ones you hear at the scene, families crying in yards, someone begging you to save what you can't. I mean the screams you hear later, alone, when you're washing soot out of your hair and your hands keep moving, like they're still working, like they're still searching. In Pine Hollow, we were a combination department. 3 paid guys, the rest volunteers. Small town tucked against a line of timberland and old mining cuts. Population just under 3,000, if you counted the folks who lived out on dirt roads and only came into town for feed. I was one of the paid guys, 27, newly married, proud of the badge on my chest. I'd transferred from a busier district because my wife wanted quieter. Quieter is a lie people tell themselves. Quiet just means the noise is better hidden. The call that broke something in me came in at 12:48 a.m. in early February. Windy night, power lines swaying, the kind of cold that makes your gloves stiff if you leave them on the rig a minute too long. Dispatch. Pine Hollow units. Respond for reported fire at the old Greer textile plant. Possible transients inside. Caller reports flames in East Wing. The Greer plant sat at the edge of town like a dead animal. 3 stories of brick and broken windows, fenced off with rusted chain link. Kids dared each other to go in there. Adults pretended it wasn't there. Everyone knew transients sometimes sheltered in it during winter. We rolled lights and sirens. Engine 1 first, then ladder 2, then rescue 3. As we approached, orange light flickered behind the broken windows. Smoke poured from the east wing, pushed by wind into sheets that wrapped the building. On scene, I could hear the fire, roaring, hungry. This wasn't a smolder. This was active and angry. We established command. Our chief, Donnelly, arrived in his pickup and took control. He was a man who'd lived in Pine Hollow his whole life. His uncle had been chief. His father had been on the council. He knew every family name like it was his own. "Luis," he said to me, "you're on search with Mark. East Wing, first floor. We go fast, in and out." Mark Haynes was a volunteer, local contractor, strong as an ox. He nodded, jaw clenched. We masked up. The wind screamed around the building, carrying sparks. The fence gate hung open, as if someone had already been in and left in a hurry. Inside the East Wing, the air was thick with smoke and the smell of old fabric burning. Sweet, acrid. Heat pressed down. Our lights cut through dust and haze, illuminating piles of debris and old machinery. "Stay low," Mark said, voice muffled through his mask. We moved along the wall, sweeping with hands and tools. Every sound was amplified in my headset. The hiss of my breathing, the crackle of radio, the distant groan of the building. We found the first living space near an old office, blankets, a half-burned candle, empty cans, no people. Then we heard it. A cough. Dry, desperate from deeper in the wing. Mark turned toward me, eyes wide. "You hear that?" "Yeah," I said. "Victim." We pushed forward. Heat increased. The floor was littered with broken glass and fabric scraps that smoldered. The cough came again, followed by a weak thump, like someone trying to knock on something. We found a door marked "Storage," painted in faded letters. The door was hot to the touch. Mark raised his Halligan. "Force it." I hesitated. "Check for backdraft." He nodded. I cracked the door slightly. Smoke pulsed out, but no explosion, just thick black smoke and a rush of heat. We forced it open and crawled in. The room was packed with old rolls of cloth, stacked like giant logs. Fire had eaten some of them, leaving charred hollows. Smoke was trapped, swirling low. In the far corner behind the rolls was a figure, a girl, maybe 16, maybe younger. Curled on her side, hair matted to her face, eyes half open. She wore a hoodie and jeans, sneakers without laces. She looked impossibly small in that industrial space. I crawled to her and checked her, breathing, shallow but present. Her skin was hot. Smoke inhalation. "Got you," I muttered, though she probably couldn't hear. Mark leaned in. "We can drag her." I grabbed her under the arms and my glove brushed her wrist. There was a mark there, fresh bruising, ring-shaped, like she'd been restrained. I froze for a fraction of a second. Mark saw my pause. "Move," he urged. We started pulling her toward the door. The heat behind us intensified and the cloth rolls began to ignite. Flames licked up, feeding on decades-old fabric like it had been waiting. "Command, Engine 1 interior," I called. "We have one victim located, East Wing storage, initiating removal." Static. Then Chief Donnelly's voice. "Copy, expedite." We dragged her through the doorway and into the corridor. Smoke was worse now, visibility near zero. The wind forced fire deeper, making it chase oxygen. Mark coughed hard. "Air check," he said. "Half tank," I replied. We made it to the main entry, where another crew met us and helped carry her out. Outside, the cold air hit like a slap. The girl coughed and spat black phlegm. Her eyes fluttered open, and she looked at me with terror that wasn't just from the fire. She grabbed my sleeve weakly, fingers trembling, and tried to speak. I leaned close. "You're safe," I said. "EMS is coming." Her lips moved around a whisper I could barely hear through sirens and wind. "Don't let him." Then her eyes rolled, and she went limp. EMS arrived, loaded her into the ambulance. I watched them work. Oxygen, IV, monitor. They asked her name. She didn't answer. I turned back to the fire scene. Chief Donnelly stood near command, talking to Sheriff Pruitt, who'd arrived in his cruiser. They both looked toward the ambulance for a moment, then back to each other. Something in their body language made my stomach tighten. Too calm, too practiced. After overhaul hours later, when dawn was gray and the plant was a skeleton, Donnelly called us into the apparatus bay back at station. He held a clipboard. "Good work," he said. "We saved what we could." Mark nodded, exhausted. Donnelly's eyes landed on me. "Luis, about the victim." "She had bruises," I said before he could finish. "Like she'd been tied up." And she said... Donnelly's face hardened. "No," he said quietly. "She did not." Silence fell like ash. I stared at him. "Chief, she grabbed my..." "She's a transient," Donnelly said, voice still calm. She ran away. She got into trouble. That's all. Sheriff's handling it. Sheriff Pruitt, standing behind him, nodded once. My heart hammered. That's not our call. If there's a crime… Donnelly stepped closer. His voice dropped. Luis, you're new here. You do your job on fires. You don't go digging into things you don't understand. Mark looked away, jaw clenched. I felt heat rise in my face. Someone hurt her. Donnelly's eyes were flat. This town takes care of its own. The phrase hit me like a punch. It was supposed to sound good, but in his mouth it sounded like a threat. Later that day, I went to the hospital. I told my wife I was checking on the victim. She kissed my cheek, proud, unaware. At the hospital, the nurse at the desk looked at me blankly when I asked about a female smoke inhalation patient from the Greer plant fire. We didn't receive anyone from that fire, she said. My stomach dropped. Yes, you did. EMS transported. She shook her head. No, sir. I tried another nurse. Same answer. I tried the ER doctor I knew. He looked uncomfortable, eyes flicking around like he wanted to be anywhere else. Luis, he said quietly. Drop it. I left the hospital feeling like the floor had shifted under me. That evening I checked the incident report. Chief Donnelly had filed it already. Under victims, 0. Under search, negative. My hands shook as I scrolled. It was clean, professional. A lie. I confronted Donnelly in his office. You falsified a report, I said, voice low. That's illegal. Donnelly leaned back, hands folded. No, he said. I wrote what needs to be written. What happened to her? I demanded. Donnelly's eyes narrowed. She's gone. Gone where? He didn't answer. He just looked at me like he was deciding how much of the truth I could survive. Luis, he said, voice softer. You got a wife. You got a life you wanted quieter. You want to keep it? You let this go. I felt my throat tighten. You're protecting someone. Donnelly didn't deny it. I left his office with my mind spinning. That night I drove out past the Greer plant. The fence was now closed with a new padlock. Fresh, shiny. I sat in my car, engine off, watching the burned-out building against the dark. Wind rattled broken glass. The plant looked like a mouth with missing teeth. I thought about the girl's bruises, about her whisper, "Don't let him." Who was him? In a small town, him is often someone with a last name that matters. Over the next week, I started noticing patterns. How Sheriff Pruitt and Chief Donnelly met privately, how certain calls, domestic disputes, odd medicals, never got logged properly, how the volunteer guys would go quiet when certain names came up. I asked Mark one evening, quietly, in the bay while we checked air packs. What do you know about Donnelly? I asked. Mark's hands paused. He didn't look at me. He's chief. That's not what I mean. Mark exhaled. Luis, he said, voice rough. You don't understand Pine Hollow. Then tell me. Mark finally looked at me, eyes tired. There are families here that run things, always have. They own the mills, the land, the council seats, they pay for the department, they keep the town alive. And the girl? I asked. Mark swallowed. Sometimes people, get dealt with. My stomach turned. You're saying they disappeared her? Mark's jaw tightened. I'm saying if you keep pushing, you'll be the next problem to solve. That night, I couldn't stop thinking. I couldn't stop hearing her whisper. I did what I should have done first. I called the state fire marshal's office anonymously. I reported the falsified victim count. I gave the incident number. 2 days later, a state investigator showed up at our station. He shook hands, asked polite questions, reviewed reports. Chief Donnelly was charming, calm, professional. He showed the investigator the burned-out plant photos. He explained that initial reports of transients were unconfirmed. No victim found. The investigator nodded, scribbled notes, thanked us, and left. That evening, Donnelly called me into his office again. He closed the door behind me. His voice was quiet. You called the state? I froze. No. He stepped closer. Don't lie to me. My chest tightened. Even if I did, that's my right. Reports. Donnelly's hand slammed the desk, not hard, but enough to make me flinch. Listen to me. This is not the city. You don't win here by being right. His eyes were cold now. You want to be a hero? You'll end up alone. I left his office shaking. The next night, we got a medical call out on a rural road, a vehicle in ditch, possible injury. It was routine, except the dispatch address was wrong. The coordinates led us to a dead-end logging trail. We arrived to nothing. No car, no skid marks, no footprints, just trees and darkness. Then my radio crackled, not dispatch. A voice, low, familiar. "Stop digging, Luis." My blood went cold. I looked around, heart hammering. Mark, riding with me, stiffened. "You hear that?" I whispered. He nodded slowly, eyes wide. The voice continued, calm. "You think you're helping? You're not." Then static. We sat in the cab, engine idling, headlights illuminating nothing but wet dirt and pine trunks. Mark's voice was barely audible. "They can hear your radio," he said. "They're on the system." My throat went dry. "Who?" Mark didn't answer. He didn't have to. Back at station, I found my locker open. Nothing stolen. Just open, like someone had been inside. On the bench was a photograph. It was my wife leaving the grocery store, taken from a distance. My hands trembled so hard I almost dropped it. Under it, written in neat block letters on a scrap of paper, "Keep your home quiet." I sat on the bench staring at that message until the bay lights blurred. That's the point where people want to imagine I did something brave, that I went public, that I blew the whistle. But bravery is expensive when the people you love become currency. I stopped asking questions. I filed reports as written. I let 0 victims stand. I let silence fill the gaps. Months later, I saw a missing person flyer taped to a gas station window in the next county over. A teenage girl named Kayla Mercer, runaway, brown hair, last seen near Pine Hollow. The photo looked like her, the same small face, the same scared eyes. I stood there staring at the flyer until the clerk asked if I was okay. I told him yes. I went back to my truck and sat in the cab, hands on the steering wheel, feeling like I couldn't breathe. That night, the pager went off for a chimney fire. Routine. An old couple's house. We knocked it down, cleared the flue, drank coffee in their warm kitchen while they thanked us. On the drive back, Mark said quietly, "You ever think about leaving?" I stared out at the dark woods. "Every day," I said. "Why don't you?" I thought about my wife sleeping in our small house, about the photo, about the message. "Because," I said, voice hollow, "I don't think they'd let me." Mark didn't respond. We drove in silence, our headlights carving a tunnel through trees, and I understood the real horror of Pine Hollow. It wasn't the burned plant, it wasn't the missing girl, it wasn't even the cover-up. It was that my hands, the hands that had pulled her out of smoke, were now being used to hold the lie in place. And that every time someone thanked me for being a firefighter, part of me wanted to scream because I knew what we'd left in the dark to keep this town quiet. And those were firefighters' horror stories. Proof that sometimes the most terrifying part of the job isn't the fire, it's what's waiting after the flames are gone. If these stories stayed with you, subscribe to Dark Hours for more true horror, first responder stories, and real encounters that don't make the news. And let me know in the comments which story disturbed you the most. Until next time, stay alert, trust your instincts, and remember, some calls never really end.